Hey there, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about pumping and give some pumping tips. Something I feel like is not often talked about, or at least I don't hear all that much about, is that pumping is a lot of work, and it's not just like the work that goes into pumping itself, but it's the setup, it's the breakdown, it's the cleaning of the parts, it's the storing of the milk, it's figuring out which settings are right for you, it's figuring out like everything. It's just such a mental load that I just wanted to jump here and give some tips. All right, so the first tip I want to talk about is a higher suction is not always going to be better. And if your pump also has a speed setting, the speed at which the pump circulates, again, that's not always going to be better if you're at the highest level. For some, it might work just fine, but it's probably better if you start kind of lower and slower. It does take some time for your body to adjust to pumping. And I know that some of us are out here raw dogging when it comes to pumping. So start on a lower setting and work your way up to a setting that you find is useful and productive, where you're getting enough milk out, but also not hurting your nipples. And as far as the length of time to pump, cap it at about 30 minutes. I've often seen about like 15 to 20 minutes as a recommendation. Personally, I liked to go up to 30 minutes and noticed like, yeah, I would get like a smidge amount more if I went to like 40 or 45 minutes. I think one time I fell asleep and went up to an hour. Yeah, it's not worth it. Again, you're already like using up all this time when it comes to pumping that getting like that much more is not going to make a difference in the long run. So get some of that time back for yourself to be able to take a nap or eat or hold your baby. On top of capping the pumping session at 30 minutes, you still have to store the milk, clean the pump parts if you're doing that. And it's, again, the whole process is a process that's long enough as it is. So don't go too long. My favorite tip I always tell everybody about is to get breast milk collection cups. So this is a breast milk collection cup, and as you can see, your nipple goes right in there. Your breast milk is caught inside the cup, and I absolutely love these things. They made my pumping journey so much better because I didn't have to have a bottle with the flange. Like, it was just like hanging off my boob, and oftentimes it would just like, I would lose suction pretty often, even if my pumping bra was nice and tight. I always encountered problems when it came to pumping the like original way. So this particular one is from Legendairy Milk. You can find like all kinds of these from different brands, and even like the same brand that your pump is, you could get that as well. But this is just like my favorite thing because you don't need a special pumping bra. You can pump in basically like whatever bra that you're currently wearing. And that's great if you're going to work. You don't have to think about what bra you need to wear if you're pumping at work. On top of that, if you're pumping at work, to me it seems like it would be a little bit more private, so to speak, because you're not sitting there again with the two bottles hanging off your breasts. You can literally be wearing this and pumping. You can't see that, but it's a lot more discreet. Now it's going to be a little bit less discreet, obviously, if you do have a bigger chest. The size of this, I don't know, that's like 3-4 inches. So it is going to add, some bulk, especially if you are bigger chested. The other thing is you might have to be washing more parts than you typically would if you are pumping with bottles and your typical flange. But honestly, like the extra parts that I was washing when I was pumping, to me, it was worth it. It was 1,000 times worth it to be using this rather than the original bottles that you get with a pump. But if those milk collection cups are not your cup of tea, I nonetheless would suggest that you get some kind of like insert or replacement for your hard plastic flanges, and to go for these like silicone ones is just that it makes things a little bit more comfortable, especially if you do have a lot of sensitivity, like if your nipples are inverted or flat. These are really nice to kind of help with that sensitivity. And even my nipples poke out a mile away. It still just felt so much better to pump using a silicone flange than a hard plastic flange any day. And speaking of nipples, I highly recommend that you measure your nipples. It's something that is often recommended like 1,000 times, especially when it comes to finding the right flange for you. And that is why you want to measure your nipples, because you want to get the right size flange. And this could really be a crucial step in your pumping journey. Before I switched to a smaller flange, it was kind of painful pumping because my nipple would just expand so much to try to fill in the space. And I should have known better at my previous job. I always always told women to find a flange that, like where there was not that much space as you're currently seeing between my finger and the flange. Like there should be a very, very minimal amount of space between the sides of the flange and your nipple. And don't quote me on this, but I either heard or read something that the majority of women are actually smaller than the flanges that are, you know, the standard size that are usually given when you get a breast pump. So, I mean, for me, this one is 21 and it worked great. I think I could get away with a 19 or a 20 and I still did okay, but the 21 was definitely like my Goldilocks flange. And if you are switching pump parts, so for example, if you're going from bottle flange to collection cup, you may need to adjust the settings. I noticed that too when I was trying a specific silicone flange. I don't remember what the brand was, but it was really thick silicone and I had to adjust the suction on my machine. So if you changing parts, you may need to re-experiment with the settings on your pump. The settings on your pump are just a guessing game. It's kind of hard to say, you know, start here because this is going to be the perfect one for you. Okay, so now you're done pumping and then what? One of the biggest time savers for me was the fridge hack. This one is very controversial because you're going to find a lot of information on the internet that says, and a lot of credible information on the internet that says, do not do the fridge hack because bacteria can grow on your pump parts. And you're going to find a lot of information on the internet from women who did the fridge hack and did it successfully without any issues to spoiling their breast milk. So what the fridge hack is, you basically just take your pump parts that collect the milk and you put them in a Ziploc bag or a container of some sort and you stick it in your fridge basically as soon as you're done pumping. I've seen somewhere that you should rinse the pump parts before you put them in the fridge. I never did that, and personally to me it doesn't make sense because breast milk is a substance that can fight bacteria to an extent. And so rinsing the parts to me made it seem like you're washing away those like antimicrobial benefits that breast milk has. And on top of that, because you're rinsing it, you're kind of introducing something foreign to the system that you already have going on there. So personally, I never rinsed it, but I did stick them in the fridge right away. And the other thing with the fridge hack is you have to wash your parts at least once a day. Also, you know, you could sterilize them, either put them in the dishwasher, or if you have a bottle sterilizer, you could use that too. I never sterilized them. To me, I just did with hot soapy water and just my brushes to clean the parts. Another thing I did as far as the fridge hack goes, I waited until Theo was a little bit older to be doing the fridge hack. I wanted to make sure that his immune system was a little bit better established compared to when he was a newborn. So I waited probably till about 3 to 4 months. I can't remember, but yeah, he was a little bit older when I started doing the fridge hack. And speaking of washing the parts, I used very hot and soapy water, and I also used a bin. That's kind of one of the best things that I started doing when I started washing all these parts, is that I had them all in a bin that was just kind of separate from any other dirty dishes, any other like soapy water. Like it was in its own thing. And this made it really easy too to wash all the parts, because some of these parts can be kind of small and I didn't want those getting into the sink, into an environment that is, you know, contaminated. So having a little bin to wash all my parts in and to let them soak for a little bit, that I would highly recommend that you give it a whirl. And I don't know if I made this clear, but if you're doing the fridge hack, make sure that you store the milk separately and then go ahead and put your parts in the fridge. So as far as storing that breast milk, it is okay to combine refrigerated milk with freshly pumped milk. You could even find this on the American Academy of Pediatrics website, saying that it is okay to do that. I think at most it's just basically going to warm up the cooled breast milk a little bit, but it is completely okay to do that. And something you can do to store your breast milk is get a glass pitcher or like a carafe or something, but basically something that's going to have a lid, so that way your milk is protected from stuff in the fridge, but also protected from potentially spilling while in the fridge. I don't know if you can necessarily count this next thing as a tip, but more so just don't spend too much time like getting the exact amount of ounces or whatever. Like don't measure an exact amount of your breast milk. I know for me it was a bit of a time suck because I did become a little bit obsessed as far as like, is that 2.7 or is that 2.9? And then I would like convert it because it was in milliliters, even though it didn't take that much longer to do that. When I stopped doing that, I just kind of felt free from essentially like being a slave to pumping. If you see about 6 ounces, call it 6 ounces. If you're wanting to underestimate, call it 5.5. Don't worry about those like little incremental amounts of breast milk that you're pumping. Another tip is to set an alarm for when you have to pump, especially if you're still kind of in that like newborn phase. You're gonna forget, like, when did I pump last? I don't know. I basically had just like alarms set throughout the day to remind me to pump. And I even had my alarms set to a song from the Black Eyed Peas called Pump It, which was great because if I was taking a nap, that thing woke me up right away. Like I had no ability to go back to sleep because the song is so high energy. Anyway, just set alarms for when you need to pump so that way you're staying consistent with your pumping according to like how babies should be nursing for their age. Don't skip a pumping between 2 and 6 a.m. Like your prolactin levels are the highest, which means you're gonna get the most output at that time. And that's something for me, even I would get like half my day's output somewhere in that pumping session. So do not skip that super early in the morning pumping session. And my last tip as far as pumping goes is to make sure that you're eating. You don't necessarily have to be eating well, but that you're eating, that you're getting those calories in. Some things I found useful when I was pumping, especially like when Theo was very small, is I would drink kefir or just drinkable yogurt. I would have cheese sticks, trail mix, instant oatmeal, bananas, spoonfuls of like nut butter, cottage cheese. Oh, the frozen vegetables that you can just throw in the microwave to get steamed. Those were so great. And having meal delivery kits also really helped. So any like fast and easy way that you can get some sort of calories in, but also like get a variety of food groups in is going to be very crucial for making sure that your supply is maintaining itself. And as far as your supply goes, just a couple of quick tips for increasing your supply. The one I was told the most was to hand express after each pumping session. Again, this is something that's going to take more time to do. And I think I probably didn't spend anything more than like 2 minutes at the most, just like hand expressing any like milk that might have been left behind by the breast pump. And that was definitely helpful in increasing my supply. And something else that was very helpful were supplements. I at first wasn't sure like if these supplements were doing anything. And so I didn't order them for like a month and I did notice a difference. So as soon as I got those back, I noticed a difference and I hadn't necessarily changed anything about my pumping or, you know, my son nursing more or anything like that. It was surprisingly the supplements. This one's kind of hard to say because everybody reacts differently. I used supplements from Legendairy Milk. You can find them at the store, but I would get them from their website. And if you see them on sale, I think you could even get them on Amazon. So if you see that they're on sale, you know, you can kind of build a stash of them. All right, so I think that's it as far as tips for when you're pumping. If there was anything I left out, if you have any tips, I would love to hear, you know, go ahead and put that in the comment section below. Let's make this a nice open discussion about pumping, what worked for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.